Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy English Spark, the house where we sharpen our English listening and speaking skills every single week. I'm thrilled you dropped in, because today we're opening the door to a brand new mini-series, a 10-chapter story that will help you practice real-world English without feeling like you're studying at all. You'll meet Oliver, a humble bus driver, Emily, a determined art lover, and a century-old Moonstone Brooch that sparks an unforgettable journey. Each episode, The Modest Driver, A Portrait in Stone, Silent Devotion, and so on, comes with bite-sized vocabulary, natural dialogue, and clear narration. All you have to do is listen, repeat, and watch your confidence grow. So grab your notebook, settle in, and let's light up your English journey, chapter by chapter, spark by spark. Chapter 1. The Modest Driver. I wake before the sky has even decided on a color. Long before sunrise, long before alarm clocks in 1,000 apartments trill their morning songs. By 4 a.m. I'm dressed, laces tight, lunch packed, and stepping into the hush of damp city air that still smells faintly of last night's rain. My destination is the Horizon Transit Depot on Riverside Avenue, home to more than 100 buses and exactly one sacred routine: mine. The yard lights buzz overhead, casting cones of weak yellow over rows of silent vehicles. To anyone else, they may look identical, but I recognize Bus 312 the instant I see it, like a friend waiting faithfully in line. She's a long, green and white city cruiser with scuffs on her fender and yesterday's grime on her glass. But she's mine for the next 9 hours, and I intend for her to shine. I pull on a pair of rubber gloves, roll out the hose, and begin the daily baptism. Cold water sheets across the windshield, freeing it of splattered dust and insect ghosts. I move methodically, roof to bumper, left side, right side, letting the hose hang over my shoulder while a soft bristled brush follows behind. No one pays me extra for this. Most drivers shrug and leave cleaning to the night crew, but I can't bear to start a shift inside someone else's dirt. While I scrub, the city exhales a faint pre-dawn breeze that smells of river water and bakery yeast drifting from a factory 2 streets over. I hear early birds, literal and metaphorical, beginning their day, a distant delivery van, a jogger's rhythmic breath, the low hum of an electrical transformer. I breathe it in and keep moving. At 4:30, I pop the hood and check the oil, even though mechanics did it yesterday. At 4:40, I wipe each mirror until my reflection is clear: close-cropped hair, dark eyes, a smile that doesn't break easily. At 4:45, I sweep the floor from front to back, coaxing out ticket stubs, cookie crumbs, and the inevitable lost receipt. A wedged-in coin lands in my palm. I deposit it in the charity tin by the office door. It may be the smallest good deed imaginable, but it feels like planting a seed. By 4:45, the depot begins to stir. Engines cough awake one row over, and a whiff of diesel floats on the air. The other drivers arrive in twos and threes, exchanging bleary nods, joking about coffee, shortages, and fantasy league standings. They notice my bucket, my sponge, my wet sleeves. "Oliver, you could open a car wash franchise," someone calls, half teasing, half admiring. I shrug and grin. I'm not trying to be better than anyone. I just like starting clean. 5 o'clock. Sharp. The dispatcher pokes her head out of the glass booth and calls, 312 Platform C. I stride up the steps, place my thermos in its cup holder, and settle behind the wheel. There's a moment, always, that feels like stepping onto a small stage. Front windshield becomes proscenium arch. Rows of empty seats become potential stories waiting for their actors. I adjust the mirror, meet my own gaze, and remind myself, every passenger deserves respect, no matter how rushed, how quiet, how irritable. The route chart clipped to the dash shows the familiar circuit: Maplewood Estates at dawn, Fulton High at first bell, the financial district by 8. I will see school bags and briefcases, strollers and grocery sacks. Some riders will keep earbuds in, worlds away. Others will chat about weather or worries or weekend plans. I am witness to their mornings, guardian of their safe arrival, and custodian of whatever mood I choose to bring aboard. A single tap of the starter button, and the engine rumbles alive beneath my feet. She vibrates gently. Old bus, big heart. Headlights cut a pale path through the dim yard as we roll toward the exit gate. For a fleeting second, I glance at the eastern horizon. The sky is cracking open, streaks of lavender yielding to faint gold. Another day is about to unfold, and I have the honor of steering its first leg. Money, truth be told, is an ever-present worry. Rent is due on the 15th, electric bill on the 20th, groceries eat the rest. I do not own a house or a car or even a proper coffee machine. Yet inside this driver's seat, uniform pressed and shoes polished, I possess something that feels richer than currency. Responsibility, pride, and the quiet knowledge that a spotless bus and a steady hand can make a stranger's morning just a little easier. We reach the depot gate. I flip on the turn signal and nudge the accelerator. Out on Riverside Avenue, streetlights wink into darkness as the first true light of day finds the asphalt. I smile to myself, grip the wheel, and whisper a promise to Bus 312. Today, we will carry stories, secrets, and futures, all under our clean roof and behind our shining windshield. And if, by nightfall, the city thanks us only with grit and dust once again, I'll rise tomorrow before dawn and wash it all away, because that is what modest drivers do, and that is who I am. Chapter 2. A Portrait in Stone. My shift ends precisely at 2 o'clock, yet instead of turning toward home, I angle my steps across Franklin Square, guided by habit as natural as breathing. The moment I clear the depot gates, the rhythm of the city changes. Diesel rumble gives way to bicycle bells. Exhaust fades into roasted coffee aromas drifting from sidewalk cafes, and afternoon sun replaces the fluorescent glare of the yard. Still wearing my uniform jacket, creased but clean, I slip my badge into my pocket and let the day's final passengers recede into memory. The Metro City Museum sits at the far edge of the square, an old Beaux-Arts palace with limestone columns and copper roof gone handsome green with age. Tourists take photos of the grand facade, never guessing that buried inside, in a quiet gallery on the second floor, waits the reason I return day after day. I know every stone block of those steps by heart. I have counted them in rain and in blistering heat, in January sleet and July swelter. Today I ascend them, feeling the pleasant heaviness in my calves, and nod to the guard at the revolving door. Inside, cool air wraps around me, a hush scented faintly with varnish and old paper. I exchange a smile with Mrs. March at the ticket desk. By now, she no longer asks for my membership card. She merely waves me through with a wink that says, "Our daily visitor returns." I stride past echoing atriums and marble statues, ignoring entire civilizations of artifacts just to reach Gallery 27, European sculpture, 1850–1920. The room is long and high, windows clear-story set so that sunlight drapes the exhibits in a soft, directional glow. Against the far wall stands the object of my pilgrimage, a life-size marble relief titled Celeste Aurelia Christie, 1898, carved by the English sculptor Roland Fairchild. She is shown in half profile, emerging from the stone as though arrested, mid-step, white gown caught in an imaginary breeze, curls pinned beneath a ribbon, chin tilted imperiously, yet eyes hauntingly gentle. Every chiseled tendril of hair seems to tremble with possibility. The first time I saw her, I thought stone could not be so alive. I move closer, adjusting my pace out of unconscious reverence, until I occupy my usual square of parquet 3 strides back. There I stop, hands clasped loosely behind me the way seasoned gallery goers do. Sunlight crosses her cheek, emphasizing the faintest dimple at the edge of her smile. An illusion, of course, but one I choose to believe. I catalog tiny details. The filigree pattern along her bodice, the fold at the elbow where gown meets forearm, the barely perceptible indentation at the base of her throat. In my pocket lies a folded booklet, highlights of the collection, whose pages are frayed from nightly study. Thumbed open, page 14 offers a black and white photograph of the relief, yet the print cannot capture the softness of these marble shadows. Often other visitors drift through, pausing politely before moving on to flashier bronzes. Their footsteps echo briefly, then fade. The hush recloses like water. Some afternoons a school group comes marching in behind an instructor, children tugging at backpacks, eyes darting from sculpture to cell phone glow. When they chatter too, loudly I retreat an extra pace, guarding a bubble of stillness around her. The docent describes neoclassical trends, the symbolism of laurel leaves, the way late Victorian artists sought to immortalize femininity. I listen but supply my own commentary in silence. See the tilt of her shoulders, that's resilience. See the parted lips, that's tenderness withheld. Facts are helpful. Feelings are indispensable. I learned Celeste's biography from the catalog essay. Born 1877 near Bath, daughter of a shipbuilder, married a diplomat, died tragically of fever on a voyage to Rangoon. I say these lines under my breath each visit, not to memorize history, but to summon it, like lighting a candle in a chapel. I wonder whether Roland Fairchild captured her from life or from memory. I wonder what color her eyes once were. I wonder if she ever rode in a conveyance driven by someone like me, if a coachman ever admired the silhouette of her hat and dreamed absurdly of conversation. Sometimes, when the gallery is empty, I allow a whisper to slip free. Nothing poetic, just a simple greeting. Good afternoon, Celeste. The bus behaved nicely today. Route ran on schedule. A ridiculous habit, yet strangely comforting. The marble, indifferent, yet perpetual, listens better than most humans in a rush. Minutes, or is it hours? Pass unnoticed. Shadows shift. The beam tracing her cheekbone crawls across to her collar, then slides away. I picture the city outside warming to late afternoon, offices emptying, cafes filling, while here we float in timeless calm. At last a docent's polite cough reminds me the museum will close at 3:30 for its weekly staff briefing. Reluctant, I step closer just once to study the cameo brooch pinned at her neckline. a moonstone surrounded by tiny carved roses. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Petals thinner than paper, veins scarcely thicker than a breath. That brooch will matter to me soon, though I cannot imagine how. For now I merely admire its elegance and pocket my well-worn booklet, ensuring it rests neatly against my heart as always. I incline my head in farewell, as if leaving the company of royalty, and retrace my path down hushed corridors toward the exit. Outside, afternoon brightness greets me. I exhale, relishing the memory of marble coolness, already anticipating tomorrow's visit, already missing the stillness inside those stone eyes. People hurry past, the city's endless cast of strangers. Yet, the relief accompanies me invisibly, a private compass made of gleaming white hope. I board the number 18 tram, take a window seat, and watch reflections slide across the glass. Somewhere behind me, locked inside the noble hush of Gallery 27, Celeste Aurelia Christie awaits, serene, unchanged, a silent audience to my unspoken confessions. Until tomorrow, my marble muse. Chapter 3. Silent Devotion. I reach my apartment by late afternoon, climb the narrow staircase to the 3rd floor, and push through a door whose paint is forever flaking, no matter how often I patch it. My rooms are small, 3 in total, but arranged with the precision of a sailor's berth. Everything is clean, orderly, and unremarkable, except for one corner of the bedroom where the ordinary ends. That corner is hers. Against the wall stands a modest pine table bathed each evening in a wedge of gold from the western sun. Above it hangs a framed reproduction of Celeste Aurelia Christie, 1898. The museum's own photograph enlarged and printed on archival paper, a birthday indulgence I ordered online despite the expense. Beneath the portrait, on a square of linen, I iron weekly, rests a museum booklet, 3 charcoal sketches I attempted on winter nights, and a single white lily changed every Sunday before dawn. It is not an altar, though it looks suspiciously like one. It is simply the place where my day, with all its diesel noise and hurried faces, finally exhales. I remove my uniform jacket, fold it with military neatness, and sit on the edge of the bed. For a moment I do nothing but breathe. Street sounds seep through the open window. 2 children arguing over a bicycle, a dog barking at a passing skateboard. But they fade when I turn my eyes to the marble woman watching over the room. Her gaze has crossed oceans and centuries to arrive in this rented flat, and I greet her with a shy nod, as if meeting her for the first time. Most evenings I speak aloud. My voice is soft, conversational, never dramatic. No declarations of love, just the quiet details of an unremarkable day. Route started slow, I say. 3 new commuters at Maplewood Estates. One told me she likes the way the bus smells now that I switched the air freshener scent. I tell Celeste about an elderly man who tipped his cap, a child who forgot, his backpack, a thundercloud that broke just as we reached the shelter of the central terminal. I tell her everything because she listens without judgment. The impassive tilt of her marble chin is the purest form of attention I have ever known. Tamai. Words run out. I open the museum booklet, turn to page 14, and study the close-up of the cameo brooch on her neckline. The real sculpture's moonstone catches light in ways the photograph never can, but the image is enough to ignite memory. I trace the outline with a fingertip, then close my eyes and reconstruct the gallery. The chill of polished stone underfoot, the muffled footfalls of visitors, the hush-like snowfall in a forest. I recall her fragrance in imagination only. Perhaps lavender, perhaps nothing, because stone has no scent. Yet in the land between waking and dream, she is fragrant, warm, and alive. On the bedside table lies a leather-bound notebook. Its pages hold a year's worth of letters I will never send. Dear Celeste, today the river flooded its banks. Dear Celeste, a sparrow rode the bus from Elm Street all the way to 6th. I sharpen each pencil line, erase and rewrite, until the sentences feel like polished stones, smooth enough to skip across water, yet destined to sink where no one will see them. I never sign my full name, only the initial O, as if anonymity might protect the ridiculous devotion blossoming in plain sight. Night deepens. I brew chamomile tea, carry the mug to the window, and watch city lights flicker on one by one. Neon. From the corner bodega scrawls shifting colors across the glass pane. I imagine Celeste standing beside me, her marble gown replaced by silk that rustles softly as she leans closer to glimpse the glowing skyline. In the silent theater of my mind, we speak without moving our lips. She asks simple questions. Is the work lonely? Do your shoulders ache? And I answer yes, sometimes. She assures me that steadfastness is its own reward. The conversation is invented, of course, but it steadies me more effectively than any sermon. Eventually, fatigue settles over my limbs like a heavy blanket. I set the empty mug aside, kneel to blow out the tea light flickering beneath her portrait, and lie down. Before switching off the lamp, I perform a final private ritual. I place the museum booklet under my pillow, spine against the mattress. It is a habit I cannot explain. Perhaps I hope osmosis will carry some fragment of her calm into my restless dreams. Sleep comes in fragments. I drift through half-remembered routes. Only instead of a bus, I drive a carriage drawn by ivory horses, and Celeste sits behind me, veiled and smiling, her gloved hand resting lightly on my shoulder. Streets are paved with moonlight. Traffic lights rain silver sparks. In the dream, no timetable rules us. No depot waits. We travel aimlessly through a city that belongs solely to us. But just as morning's first birds begin to sing, the dream thins, cracks, and vanishes, leaving only the faintest scent of lavender behind. Dawn pries open the curtains and the alarm rings at 3:45. I wake, stiff but calm, convinced for a heartbeat that she is still seated by the window. Reality settles. Apartment, uniform, daybreak. And I rise. Yet the calm endures, stitched into my ribs by the dream's gentle needle. I smooth the bed, store the booklet in its drawer, rinse yesterday's mug, and dress for another shift. Before leaving, I turn to the portrait once more. Her eyes, though carved in stone, seem to acknowledge the fresh tulip I placed in the vase. I nod a promise. I will return at 2, same as always. Then I close the door, descend the stairwell, and step into the pale morning glow. For the next 9 hours, the city will know me only as Oliver, bus driver, modest man in a pressed blue jacket. No one will guess that beneath the uniform beats a devotion too silent, too steadfast, and perhaps too strange ever to be shared. But that is fine. Some stories are not written to be spoken aloud. They are carved, like marble, to endure in private chambers of the heart. Chapter 4. The Lost Trinket. When my shift finishes at 2:06 on the dot, the depot yard is already loud with idling engines and drivers exchanging last-minute gossip. Ordinarily, I would park 312 in her slot, sign the inspection sheet, and slip away toward the museum. But today, the dispatch board flashes an unexpected request. Oliver, double back on 214. No relief driver available. A sigh escapes before I can trap it. Bus 214 is the antithesis of 312. Older suspension, chipped paint, and, thanks to the night crew's chronic shortcuts, an interior that forever smells of fast food salt. Still, the route is a short loop, 35 minutes out to Hawthorne, Mall and back, so I agree. By 2:15 p.m. I am easing 214 from the bay, hoping she behaves long enough to keep the timetable intact. The loop itself passes without drama. A handful of shoppers weighed down with sales bags, two teenagers comparing, phone screens, an elderly couple who thank me in unison as they alight. At exactly 2:52 p.m., the last passenger steps off and I steer through the depot gates, tires hissing on the damp tarmac. My stomach reminds me I skipped lunch, but the code in my bones insists I clean first, eat later. I kill the ignition, set the brake, and fetch a long-handled broom from the tool rack. On the first sweep down the aisle, I collect the usual debris: ticket stubs, a shoelace, a crumpled coffee receipt. The second pass reveals a plastic bottle lodged beneath the exit step. The third pass stops me cold. Near the rear row, half hidden, under the vinyl seat lies a sliver of silver glinting against the dull rubber floor. I crouch, brush aside a swirl of lint, and draw the object into my palm. It is an ornate brooch shaped like a new crescent moon, no larger than a silver dollar. At its center sits a milky gem, oval and faintly luminescent, held by four claw-like prongs. Tiny scrollwork vines chase one another around the rim, their detail so fine it must have been wrought by a patient hand under a strong lens. For a heartbeat, the depot noise recedes. All I hear is the rustle of my own pulse. Rules here are ironclad. Any item left on a bus must be logged with lost and found before the driver clocks out. I have never once bent that rule. Yet this brooch stirs a peculiar recognition, an echo I cannot place. I turn it over, pin intact, catch unbroken. No initials, no maker's mark, only a soft patina that hints at age. I glance to be sure no one is watching, then slip the brooch into my shirt pocket, pin facing outward so it cannot scratch. I tell myself it is only until I reach the office. But even as I think it, I know I am lying to myself. Inside the maintenance shed, fluorescent lights hum overhead while I rinse the broom and refill the washer fluid. The brooch's faint weight presses against my chest like a secret oath. Twice I start toward the lost and found window, envisioning the ledger where I will sign my name, the pen tethered by a frayed string. Twice I veer away, suddenly fascinated by an oil stain pattern on the concrete. What if, just this once, I carry the item home, examine it, return it tomorrow? Overcautious, I argue. Dishonest, the other half of my brain counters. The debate stalemates until the clock reads 3:18, dangerously close to museum closing time. Impulse tips the scales. I sign off my shift, punch the time card, and walk out, the brooch pulsing like a second heartbeat. The museum is 9 blocks east. I cover the distance in record time, feet drumming a tattoo of guilt and anticipation. Up the limestone steps, past Mrs. March's genial nod, through the hush of the grand rotunda. I trot the familiar corridor to Gallery 27, breathing faster with every echoing footfall. There she is, Celeste, unchanged, forever half emerged from marble. Sunlight slants low now, dust motes drifting through the beam that grazes her carved cheek. I stop precisely 3 strides back as ritual dictates and draw the brooch from my pocket. My hand trembles. The stone at the center, Moonstone? Opal, seems to drink the gallery light and breathe it back in a blue-white glow. I lift my eyes to Celeste's carved bodice. There, pinned just below her collarbone, is a sculpted likeness of the very brooch I hold. Fairchild carved it in exquisite fidelity, gem claws, swirling vines, so exact that the stone in my palm feels more like a chip flaked from the sculpture than a piece of independent jewelry. My lungs forget their duty. I stand frozen, heart thudding. Could a replica have been fashioned from the relief? Could the relief have been modeled on a real heirloom now lying in my palm? The questions crowd one another without finding purchase. Faint footsteps interrupt my trance. A docent leading a tiny group. I pocket the brooch and step aside, feigning interest in a marble bust of some nameless earl. When they move on, I return to Celeste and whisper, "Where did you send this from? And to whom does it belong now?" She answers, as always, with silence carved from another century. Back in my apartment, twilight pours liquid fire across the west-facing windows. I set the brooch on the pine table beneath Celeste's reproduced portrait, aligning it carefully with the printed brooch in the photograph. The similarity is undeniable. Even the way the vines taper at the crescent tips matches with uncanny synchronicity. I fetch the magnifying glass I keep for reading street maps and study the metal. Inside one of the vines, nearly invisible, is an engraving, AF 1898. My pulse picks up pace, 1898, the year carved on the museum's placard. AF. Could those be the sculptor's initials, Roland Amesbury Fairchild? Or someone else entangled in Celeste's life? The room darkens until only the brooch gleams, lit by the single bedside lamp. My moral ledger stirs restlessly. The trinket is valuable, maybe monetarily, certainly historically. I imagine handing it to Mrs. March tomorrow, and watching a wave of administrative procedures wash it away from me, maybe locking it in storage for months. The thought twists something in my gut. Another path emerges. Keep the brooch hidden, search for its owner myself. Perhaps a descendant of Celeste resides somewhere in the city. Perhaps some museum file lists objects lent to the sculptor for reference. To chase that path would be, what exactly? Noble? Reckless? Obsessive? I pour tea, pace the floor, weigh consequences against curiosities. Moonlight sneaks across the rug and climbs the wall, pooling at Celeste's feet, as if urging me toward some unspoken quest. All right, I say aloud, startling myself. All right, then. The decision solidifies. Tomorrow morning, on my day off, I will start at the depot, question the night driver of 214, follow whatever breadcrumbs appear. I do not know where they will lead, but I cannot abandon the thread now that it is tightened around my heart. I finally slip the brooch into the small oak box where I keep my mother's wedding ring and my grandfather's watch. The brass latch clicks shut, sealing a promise I have made to no one but Celeste and myself. The lost trinket will find its rightful story, and I will carry it there, come what may. Outside, a siren wails, then fades. I sit on the bed's edge, eyes drawn to the framed relief. In the soft lamp glow, her marble lips seem curved in the faintest smile, as though she knew I would choose this road from the moment the brooch touched my palm. Tomorrow, the search begins. Tonight, I whisper a final goodnight to the woman carved in stone in the secret she has placed directly into my keeping. Chapter 5. A Quiet Reflection. It is 10:30 when the kettle stops rattling and the apartment slips into a hush so complete I can hear the faint tick of the hallway clock beyond my door. Steam curls from the rim of my teacup, drifting upward like an unraveled ribbon, then vanishing against the ceiling where pale plaster maps its own forgotten constellations. I sit at the small kitchen table, elbows resting on cool formica, and let my breath slow until each exhale matches the clock's pendulum swing. Tomorrow will be the first Wednesday in months that I do not visit the museum, and that absence presses on my ribs like an unfamiliar weight. Instead, my morning will begin with questions, directed first at Jasper, the night shift driver, and then wherever the answers choose to wander. But tonight there is no investigation, no timetable, only a still room, a sleeping city, and a crescent moon. Brooch locked inside an oak box 3 paces away. I turn the box key over in my fingers. Such a tiny sliver of brass to hold so much significance. With every slow rotation, the metal flashes gold beneath the kitchen lamp and reminds me that my quiet life, so long measured in roots and routines, has collided with a mystery that belongs to someone else entirely. I feel like a trespasser, yet also a guardian, perched on the threshold of a story paused a century ago. To steady my thoughts, I open the leather-bound notebook and write the date in the margin. Wednesday, 15th May, 10:42 p.m. My pen hesitates, then moves again. Dear Celeste, the brooch is safe tonight. The whole day it sat against my heart like a second pulse. I told no one. Tomorrow I begin the search, and I confess I am afraid, less of failure than of stumbling into a truth unworthy of the beauty that carved your face. The words look overly dramatic once they are inked, but I do not cross them out. Honesty? No. Matter how awkward is the guiding light here. I cap the pen and close the book, then rise to stand by the window. Outside, Franklin Square is silvered by street lamps. Benches empty, fountains shut, benches glistening from a late evening sprinkle. A solitary taxi idles at the rank, amber roof light glowing through the mist. Briefly, I imagine the driver discovering a treasure on the back seat, perhaps this very brooch, and I wonder whether he would make the same reckless choice I did. A breeze threads through the open pane, stirring the curtain and carrying the distant hum of late-night traffic. Somewhere beyond the rooftops, the museum's limestone facade sleeps in darkness. Gallery 27 is a vault of night, its sculptures stripped of sunlight and rendered softly invisible. I picture Celeste within that black velvet silence. No tourists, no docents, no curious bus driver studying her every line. She is alone with her secrets, and the thought both comforts and stings. I drift back to the pine table, open the oak box, and lift the brooch into the lamplight. Its gemstone, a moonstone, I am convinced now, glows with that strange internal luminance that seems to shift when I tilt it, like clouds passing across a tiny captured sky. I have read that moonstone carries meanings, intuition, hidden knowledge, safe passage at night. If folklore whispers any truth, then perhaps the gem is not merely adornment, but a signpost, guiding me toward the rightful ending of this tale. With the magnifying glass, I reread the minute engraving. A.F., 1898. Roland. Amesbury Fairchild. The sculptor's initials explain one mystery, yet spark a legion of others. Did he gift the brooch to Celeste? Did she sit for him wearing it? Did the moonstone catch his artist's eye and demand eternal life in marble? Or did Fairchild carve, from memory, honoring a woman already gone? History books offer nothing. The catalog in my bedside drawer devotes 2 paragraphs to her biography, and not a single line to personal belongings. And so the story waits, unfinished, suspended in the hush of my apartment. I place the brooch back into its nest of velvet, click the lid closed, and slide the key beneath the notebook on the table. A ritual thought surfaces, steady as the tide. Guard what is precious, even if it was never meant to be yours. The hour hand nudges toward midnight. I wash the teacup, wipe the table dry, and switch off the kitchen lamp. Darkness tiptoes behind me as I cross to the bedroom, guided only by the dim glow of the city beyond the curtains. I stop before the framed photograph of Celeste over the pine table. The moonstone in the picture, just a gray blur on glossy paper, almost seems to pulse in answer to the real brooch locked away behind me. Tomorrow, I whisper, voice hardly audible. I'll follow the first thread. A promise spoken to marble lips that cannot hear. Yet somehow I believe the message reaches her. I picture her nodding, approving my intent with that serene half-smile the sculptor caught so perfectly. I turn down the coverlet, slide beneath the sheets, and set the alarm for 5:30 a.m., an indulgence of an extra 90 minutes on my day off. Before I close my eyes, I imagine possible mornings. Jasper remembering a name, a hotel clerk producing a guest ledger, a telephone ringing somewhere down an unfamiliar hallway. Each image flickers, uncertain, but none feels impossible. Finally, sleep settles. In the drifting space between wakefulness and dreams, I think I see Celeste leaning close, whispering encouragement I cannot quite decipher. Her features blur, dissolve, and become the moonstone sky of the brooch itself, clouds parting to reveal a path of quiet silver light. When morning comes, plans may change, clues may vanish, doubts may multiply. But tonight, in the still, sacred hush that holds the ticking clock and the locked oak box, one certainty anchors my heart. The journey has begun, and every measured step forward is guided by devotion too deep, too silent, and too steadfast to turn aside. Chapter 6. The Dilemma. Dawn arrives as a washed-out watercolor, clouds the color of pale ash, streaks of apricot trying and failing to break through. I rise at the soft trill of the alarm, shoulders heavy with the promise of a day unlike any other. No bus route to chart, no museum to haunt. Only a question balanced on a silver moonstone brooch and a conscience that refuses to hush. By 6:15 a.m. I am outside, coffee in a paper cup warming my palms. The street is half empty, shop fronts still shuttered. I board the first eastbound tram more from habit than need, finding a window seat as wind rattles through the open ventilation slats. Every clack of the rail seems to ask the same nagging thing. Why haven't you surrendered the brooch? I press my coat pocket where the key to the oak box rests, though the box itself is locked at home. Yesterday I promised to follow the first thread, but threads tangle easily, and some end in knots that tighten the harder one pulls. An imagined scene. I picture myself walking into the depot's lost and found office just after sunrise. Ms. Carraway, the clerk with the severe bun and even more severe ledger, looks up over her spectacles. "Item description?" she asks, pen poised. "A brooch," I reply, unfolding it onto a blotter. She inspects it, clinical, detached, then writes 4 sterile lines. Object 3276. Crescent-shaped brooch, silver. Found on bus 214. She rises, carries the artifact to a steel cabinet, opens drawer C, and lowers the brooch into a Ziploc pouch already crowded with earbuds, scarves, and someone's cracked phone. Gate closed. Key turned. Case considered closed. Weeks pass. A claim form never arrives. After 90 days, the company applies policy. Unclaimed items become corporate property. The brooch is sold at auction, fetching a fraction of its worth, boxed and carted to a collector who values only its price per gram. The vision leaves a metallic taste on my tongue. I know responsible procedure demands that path, yet every fiber of instinct rebels. Why would an object echoing Celeste's own adornment end up beneath a seat in bus 214? Who misplaced it? Does someone even now retrace yesterday's steps in panic, mourning a family relic, a walk through old ethics? I exit the tram 2 stops early and wander the embankment, letting river air clear the clutter of thoughts. My mother raised me on unquestioning honesty. "Leave the world tidier than you found it," she'd say, handing me a waste bag on weekend hikes. But she also believed in care. That simply surrendering something precious to bureaucracy isn't always the best way to protect it. I pause on a pedestrian bridge, watching barges slip beneath. The brooch's engraving pulses in memory. AF 1898. If those letters truly mark Roland Fairchild, then the pin is more than jewelry. It is a fragment of art history. Entrusting such history to Horizon Transit's lost property vault feels like casting a manuscript into a shredder and hoping pure chance spares a page. My pulse quickens with another possibility. Take the brooch? Straight to the museum. Yet that too bears risk. Museum staff might question why a bus driver withheld the item for 24 hours. The minute doubt of theft could cloud every word of mine, and once an accusation whispers through marble halls, it never fully dies. The depot at mid-morning. At 9 sharp, I arrive at Horizon Transit anyway, resolved to at least look at procedure before forsaking it. The yard smells of diesel and wet concrete. Drivers off night duty trudge toward lockers, eyes half shut. I cross to the lost and found window and peer inside. Miss Carraway isn't on duty. Instead, a young trainee leafs nervously through forms, tapping a pen whose click echoes like a dazed ticking bomb. Over his shoulder I glimpse the steel drawers, so impersonal, so final. A cold certainty slides through me. If I surrender the brooch now, the mystery ends in that metal tomb. No heritage reunited, no questions answered, no story told. I step back before he notices me, heart hammering, moral compass spinning wildly, between duty and desire. Choosing a road. Outside the office, I lean against a column and let the depot noise roll over me. After a long minute, I know what I will do. Investigate discreetly. Speak first to Jasper, the driver who handled bus 214 before me, in hopes of recalling a passenger. Trace the object's lineage. Search public records for descendants of Roland, Fairchild, or Celeste Christie. Safeguard the brooch. Keep it locked but accessible, condition impeccable, until the rightful custodian emerges. It is, I admit, a selfish plan. I keep control, postpone official channels. Yet sometimes, and I feel Celeste's marble gaze silently endorse this, justice requires a steward with personal investment rather than an indifferent system. Afternoon preparations. Decision made. Energy floods back like current into a dormant circuit. I spend the rest of the morning gathering tools. From the public library's archive room, I photocopy an article on Fairchild's 1902 retrospective, noting footnotes about personal artifacts lent by the Christie estate. At a stationery shop, I purchase a slim pocket notebook to log every clue. Its first page I title Brooch Inquiry, underlined twice. I text my supervisor for Jasper's roster. Confirmation he clocks in at 4:00 p.m. for a late split shift ending near midnight. By 3 o'clock, clouds break open to reveal a shard of IR blue sky, nervous but bright. I head home, unlock the oak box, and study the brooch once more in sunlight. The moonstone flashes with an inner life, as though approving the turn events have taken. The weight of choice. Evening settles and the hallway clock resumes its slow metronome. If guilt remains, it has softened into a manageable whisper. I rehearse. Conversations with Jasper. Do you recall a passenger wearing unusual jewelry? I rehearse explanations to a potential owner. I found it, but believed safeguarding it personally was the quickest path back to you. Every script circles the central truth. I have chosen involvement over compliance. At 7:30 p.m., I pack a thermos of strong coffee, don my jacket, and slip the notebook into one pocket, the key into another. The brooch stays inside the oak box. Taking it to the depot feels reckless. Yet before I close the lid, I whisper a vow. Tonight begins the journey home. A final thought. On the threshold, I pause beneath Celeste's photograph. Her marble half-smile appears in this dim lamp, almost conspiratorial, as if she delights in my minor rebellion. Wish me steadiness, I say quietly. Perhaps I imagine it, but the moonstone in the picture seems to catch the lamplight and glimmer back, an echo of the real gem now entrusted to my care. I lock the apartment door, descend the stairwell, and step into the city's gathering dusk. Somewhere beyond bus bays and office ledgers waits the rightful chapter of the brooch's long story. And though I do not know the route or the timetable, I have staked my modest, orderly life on seeing that story told. The dilemma is settled, at least for now. Conscience and curiosity have formed a fragile alliance. Ahead lies uncertainty, but also purpose. The rarest passenger to ever board my quiet heart. Chapter 7. A Late-Night Inquiry. Night has a different gravity in the depot yard. Floodlights cast long, watchful shadows, and the air smells of diesel layered over the faint sting of cleaning solvent. It is 10:45 p.m. when I arrive, thermos in hand, footsteps echoing between motionless buses lined up like dozing elephants. Their engines tick as they cool, each metallic ping a lullaby after a day's labor. I head for the driver's lounge, a prefab box bolted to the edge of the garage, its fluorescent glow the only bright square in a field of darkness. Inside, a battered vending machine hums beside two brown sofas that have absorbed decades of gossip and spilled coffee. The wall-mounted clock reads 22:47. Jasper isn't due in until 5 past midnight, so I settle on the far sofa, notebook open on my knee, and let the minutes seep past like slow syrup. The wait. Time in a place like this isn't linear. It collects in eddies. Mechanics shuffle through, wiping grease from forearms. A rookie driver paces, rehearsing tomorrow's route under his breath. An elderly dispatcher named Walt lounges at a metal desk near the door, stamping completed trip sheets and humming half a bar of some forgotten jazz standard. I nod at him. He tips an imaginary hat. Every few lines in my notebook, I glance at the entry gate, where periodic headlights glide in, deliver a bus, then vanish again into night. Each arrival thuds my pulse a little faster. When the clock finally blinks 23:58, anticipation stands up inside my chest and refuses to sit. Jasper's return. Bus 214 coasts through the gate at 0004, headlights dimming as it noses toward the fueling lane. Even from 30 yards away, I can read exhaustion in the slow way it brakes, the way its wipers smear a reluctant arc across the windshield. Jasper climbs down. Tall, broad-shouldered, uniform jacket unbuttoned, tie loose as a sailor's knot. His hair is damp with summer humidity, and his eyes carry the heavy glaze of a man 12 hours into a 14-hour shift. A half-finished energy drink dangles from one hand. I intercept him halfway to the lounge door. "Evening, Jasper," he squints, searching memory, then grunts a greeting. "Oliver, right? Thought you had Wednesdays off." "Normally, yes. I'm chasing a little mystery." He raises an eyebrow but steps inside. I follow, motioning toward the vending machine. "Coffee? My treat." He smirks. At this hour, caffeine is survival, not luxury. The machine clunks out 2 steaming cups. We claim the corner sofa, foam springs sighing beneath weight, and, for a moment, we drink in silence. I let him take 3 gulps before broaching the subject, the conversation. "I covered your Hawthorne Loop yesterday afternoon," I begin, voice kept light. "Found something in the back row. Thought you might help me trace its owner." He leans back, lids drooping. "Lost and found handles that." I know. This item felt special. Crescent-shaped brooch, silver, moonstone center. Looked antique. Flicker crosses his face, a subtle tightening around the eyes. "Can't say I noticed it. Yesterday was a blur." "Fair enough," I say, flipping to a blank page in the notebook. "Maybe you remember the passengers before me? Anyone with noticeable jewelry?" Jasper drags a hand over his jaw. "Let's think." He shuts his eyes as though rewinding film. "Picked up 2 shoppers at the mall. Bags full of trainers, no fancy pins. High school couple arguing about prom. An older fellow with a suitcase, probably headed for the late city train." He shakes his head. I sense the window of clarity, closing and press gently. "What about near the end of your shift? After dusk?" A longer pause. Then, "There was a woman, actually, around 11:20. Flagged me down outside the Crescent Hotel on Elm Street." My heart clicks into a faster gear. Any details? Early 20s. Hair in a neat bun, though some strands were loose, looked like she'd hurried out. Wearing a fitted blazer, navy maybe. She kept patting her pocket like she'd lost something already. Alone? Yeah. Asked for South Bank Hostel near the university. Quiet the whole ride. Got off, said thanks, practically sprinted to the entrance. I jot each fact, ink scratching paper like a race against fading memory. Notice any jewelry on her? Small earrings, pearls or imitation. Hard to see in the cabin lights. Pin? Don't recall. He blows a tired breath. Look, Ollie, I'd love to be Sherlock, but it was late and I was chasing the schedule. I understand. I peel the lid from my coffee, letting steam rise. But this helps. Crescent Hotel to South Bank Hostel is a thread. He studies. Me over the rim of his cup. Why the personal crusade? Turn it in and be done. I consider how much truth to spill. Let's say the brooch might have historical value. Rightful owner deserves care, not a paper slip and a metal drawer. Jasper nods slowly. Something sympathetic enters his posture. Fair point. You planning to talk to the hostel staff? At first light. I tap the notebook. See if a guest reported a loss? He stifles a yawn. You'll need the trip. Log for her timestamp. He gestures toward the dispatch desk where Walt is now dozing over a crossword. Each fare swipes a card. Computer archives everything. I checked earlier, I admit. But privacy locks the details. Without management code, I can't access passenger tags. Jasper pulls a key card from his pocket, twirls it. Driver clearance won't get you far, but Walt's supervisor code might. Catch him before he clocks out at 2. The hint of conspiracy lifts the edges of my mouth. Thank you, Jasper. Seriously. He rises, stretches like a weary bear. Just return the thing, or you'll keep me up nights wondering. He claps my shoulder once, then trudges toward the lockers. Into the records midnight deepens. I cross to Walt's desk. The dispatcher jolts awake as I approach. Need a favor. Walt! He glances at the mug in my hand and snorts. If it's coffee, make it a double. I hand him a fresh cup. He sips, eyes closing in appreciation. I outline my request. Passenger log for bus 214 yesterday, 23 graus to 23:30. He arches a brow. Company policy. Only for security or law enforcement. Could become a security matter if valuable property goes missing, I argue, soft but firm. Better to prevent a complaint. He considers. Coffee must taste persuasive tonight because he swivels to the terminal, types a series of commands, and prints a narrow strip of thermal paper. "Keep it quiet," he mutters, passing the slip. I scan the timestamps. 2319, Elm and Cedar, single fare, card ID 7F3B 9961. 2332, South Bank Hostel Station, card ID 7F3B 9961, exit swipe. A match. Same writer. Beneath a tiny field reads, account name, Thorn, Emily B. My pulse stutters. A name. First tangible evidence. I fold the printout, thank Walt, and slip away before conscience can change his mind. Leaving the depot 1:05 a.m. Humidity thickens as I step back into the yard. Overhead lights halo in mist. Somewhere a wrench clangs, echoing. The buses tower silently, their massive silhouettes like guardians of industrial secrets. I walk the long perimeter fence thinking of the surname, Thorn, and the initial B. My mind drifts to Celeste's era, to family trees branching through decades until a descendant stands in a hotel doorway, patting a pocket now empty. By the time I reach the gate, a plan has knitted itself. Sunrise, South Bank Hostel. Speak to reception. Confirm Emily B. Thorne's stay. Discover checkout status. Mid-morning. City Registrar. Trace Thorne's address. Perhaps workplace. Always. Keep the brooch safe. Keep intentions pure. I exhale, fogging the night air, and glance back once more at the depot's sleeping giants. Tonight they held answers, not just exhaust and schedules. Tonight the quest advanced. Homeward, the streets are close to empty. I walk, letting the cool breathe against the heat of adrenaline. Above, the moon itself wears a crescent grin, an echo of silver tucked inside an oak box awaiting dawn. Every few blocks I touch the folded printout in my pocket, grounding myself in the certainty of inked letters. At last, my apartment door closes behind me with a soft click. I move to the pine table, unlock the box, and let the moonstone catch one glint of street lamp spill. For the first time, its glow feels less like mystery and more like a beacon, guiding both itself and me toward reunion. I whisper into the hush. We have a name, Celeste. Tomorrow we follow it. The photograph's marble smile offers no reply, but I sense approval in the very stillness. I slip the brooch back into velvet and, notebook still in hand, sink onto the bed fully clothed. Outside, the city's pulse slows. Inside, mine drums with quiet purpose. The late-night inquiry is ended, but its echoes will carry forward into morning light into living history, into whatever unknown corridor leads Emily Thorne back to her lost crescent moon. Chapter 8. The Hotel Stakeout. Morning drifts in bleary and gray, the sort of light that seems to apologize for waking anyone at all. I leave the apartment just after 6, pockets loaded with notebook, pen, and Walt's printout folded crisp as a secret map. The brooch remains locked at home. Instinct tells me to keep it secure until the moment of return. South Bank Hostel occupies the end unit of a narrow brick terrace on Calder Street, 4 blocks from the riverfront. From a distance, it looks less like a hotel and more like a row house that forgot to quit growing. 3 stories, bay windows warped by decades of rain. A hand-painted sign reading, South Bank Beds and Breakfasts, that tilts 5 degrees off level. A neon vacancy flickers behind the ground floor glass, the Y permanently dark, so that the sign seems to whisper vacants into the dawn. I cross the street and claim a table outside the Moonrise Cafe. Only business open this early. From here, I command a full view of the hostel door, plus its single-lane driveway where ride shares idle before dawn flights. A waitress with half-done eyeliner brings black coffee that tastes like burnt hopes, but the mug's warmth bleeds comfort through my fingers. 7:05, first movement. A backpacker in neon trainers emerges, yawning, and lugs a suitcase toward the tram stop. Not Emily. Wrong silhouette, wrong energy. I scribble a quick note, tall male, blue rucksack, and settle back to wait. I have never staked out a building before, yet there is a strange, slow rhythm to the business of watching. Time dilates. Every car door slam echoes longer. Every sidewalk echo carries weight. A pair of pigeons stage a turf war on the opposite gutter. A baker's van unloads sacks of flour next door. A courier bicycle whistles past strung with parcels like metallic wings. Each event inks itself into the wide-margin pages of my notebook, though only one line truly matters. Locate Emily B. Thorne. Retrieve brooch. Restore history. 8:12. A cab rolls up. License plate ending 64J. Driver remains inside. A young woman in scrubs exits the hostel carrying a packed duffel and a to-go cup, clearly en route to a shift. I lean forward, but she is auburn-haired, maybe 35, and when she smiles a half apology to the driver, I see a gap between her front teeth Emily never had. Scratch her from the list. The street warms with mid-morning traffic. Sunlight escapes the cloud cover, turning hostel windows into molten mirrors. My second coffee cools to sludge. I realize stakeouts are built on two pillars, patience and bladders, of prodigious strength. 40 minutes later, I surrender the latter and duck inside the cafe's narrow restroom. The transaction takes less than a minute, but paranoia insists the crucial moment will occur exactly then. I hurry back out, heart thudding. Nothing has changed. The universe has spared me the irony. 47. At last, a flash of relevance. A slim figure steps onto the hostel's threshold, glancing left, right, then back through the doorway as though making certain no one follows. Dark hair pinned in a messy bun, navy blazer, a shoulder bag hugged close to her side, the side opposite the pocket Jasper said she patted. Even from 30 paces I know, Emily B. Thorne. She descends the short stoop and heads west, boots quick, against the pavement. Instinct flings me upright, notebook forgotten on the table. I drop coins, mumble thanks to the waitress, and follow at a discreet distance, 6 car lengths behind, enough to blend into pedestrian flow. Emily walks like a woman propelled by inner commentary, urgent but not frantic. Twice she checks her phone, thumb skimming the screen. Twice she bites her lip after reading whatever glows back. At Faraday Avenue, she pauses to scan a bus timetable, then dismisses it and continues on foot, cutting through a small square where sycamores shed golden leaves. I rehearse greetings. "Excuse me, Ms. Thorne, were you on bus 214 last night?" Too abrupt. "Pardon, I believe you lost something precious." Suspicious. "You don't know me, but I think I hold a piece of your family's past." Too dramatic. She reaches Wren Street Market, open-air stalls hawking cut flowers and second-hand books. Here, pedestrian density offers cover. I close the gap to 3 yards, just in time to see her pivot suddenly into a side arcade labeled St. Pierre's Chapel. All welcome. My pulse bolts. A chapel? Unexpected turn in the script. I hesitate only a breath before following. Inside, the space unfolds in dim stained glass light, pews polished by generations. At this hour, only a handful of souls dot the benches, each cloaked in private prayer. Emily slips into the rear pew, drops her bag at her feet, and bows her head. I choose a pew 2 rows behind, far left, plenty of vantage through the lattice of seat backs. For a moment, architecture itself hushes my plan. Dusty shafts of colored light, the faint perfume of candle wax, a pipe organ silent as a monument. Even obsession kneels before this hush. Emily draws something from her blazer pocket. A single pearl earring. She turns it over in her fingers, eyes glistening even at this distance. My throat constricts. She reaches into the other pocket, finds only air, and her shoulders sag. She lifts the lone earring toward the altar as if offering apology to whatever witness resides here. The gesture shatters any hesitation in me. I move forward, seating myself gently beside her. She startles. Tear-blurred eyes widen. "I'm sorry," I whisper. "Please, don't be alarmed. My name is Oliver." I keep hands visible, palms up like a peaceful traveler. "I believe I found something that belongs to you." Her voice trembles. You were on the bus?" "I drove it after your trip," I clarify. "You left behind a brooch, a crescent moonstone in silver. Does that sound familiar?" Her lips part. A breath escapes like a blown-out candle. She nods once, hard. "I thought it was lost forever." "I have it safe at home," I say, "locked away until I could locate the owner. That's why I followed. You must forgive the clandestine approach." Tears spill now, unchecked. "It's my great-great-grandmother's. She wore it when she sat for a sculptor." A shaky laugh. "Family story says the piece ended up in a museum." "Celeste Aurelia Christie," I murmur. Shock flickers across her face. "You know her name?" I do. I gesture to the pew ahead. "Would you allow me to explain?" She nods, dabbing eyes with a sleeve. We slide closer. Whispered words weave through chapel quiet. I recount bus 214, the late shift, the glint beneath a seat. I describe Celeste's marble relief, my daily pilgrimages, the impossible match between carved jewel and real one. I omit nothing except the ferocity of my personal devotion. Some truths remain too fragile to place in new hands. Emily listens, rapt, fingers clutching the lone pearl earring. When I finish, silence settles, deep, reverberant. Finally, she breathes. "I ran last night. Someone at the office. He frightened me. I grabbed a taxi, but when I reached the hostel, I realized the clasp was empty." She manages a rueful smile. "I've spent every hour since retracing steps praying." "Your prayers traveled," I say gently, "almost as far as the brooch traveled to find me." A faint rustle, other worshippers preparing to leave, reminds us of the world outside. Emily straightens. May I see it?" I can prove ownership, photos, letters. "You shall, I promise. But not here. My apartment is 3 tram stops away. Will you accompany me? Trust, once cracked, is slow to mend. I see caution flare in her eyes, then ebb. She nods. Yes, but let's tell the hostel desk first. My bag is still in my room. They know my plans for checkout. We stand. She slips the pearl earring into the blazer pocket, now an emblem of partial reunion. As we exit the chapel, colored light catches her profile. For a heartbeat, I glimpse Celeste's immortal serenity merging with Emily's tremulous present. In the square, traffic has thickened, morning fully awake. We walk side by side, not quite touching, sharing the first outlines of history that has stitched her family's past to my unlikely present. Above, clouds part, a slice of blue, curved like a silvery crescent, opening the sky to possibilities I had not dared imagine yesterday. The stakeout is ended. Discovery begins. Chapter 9. A Tearful Visitor. I unlock my apartment at 10:30, ushering Emily Thorne across the threshold as though the place were a private wing of the Louvre instead of a modest third-floor walk-up. She hesitates on the worn welcome, mat, surveying the small living room, books stacked too high against walls, a single armchair angled toward the pine table beneath Celeste's portrait. For the first time since I hung that photograph, another pair of eyes, not mine, takes it in at a breathless hush. That's her, Emily whispers, one hand pressed to her chest. Yes. The single syllable carries every hour I have spent beneath that printed image. My daily muse, and it seems your great-great-grandmother. I cross to the table, withdraw the oak box from its drawer, and set it gently beside the fresh lily. The lid clicks open. Moonstone catches daylight like a captive star. Emily gasps, soft, inhaled, and tears spring before she can blink them back. She lifts the brooch as if welcoming home a child lost in a crowd. Light quivers across the silver crescent, casting pale ripples over her trembling fingers. She doesn't speak for nearly a minute. Then, voice ragged, my grandmother kept this in a velvet pouch. Every birthday she told me it would guide the brave heart home. She turns the crescent to reveal the engraving. AF. Those are Roland Fairchild's initials. Family legend says he carved the relief while Celeste wore this very piece. I nod, relieved the marks confirm the story. I hoped you could verify that. She reaches into her shoulder bag, producing a bundle of yellowed letters ribboned together. She offers one, postmarked 1910. Inside, cramped cursive describes the brooch as a token of affection immortalized in stone. The signature reads, R.A. Fairchild. We sit at the table, sunlight striping the wood as we work side by side. Letters, catalog pages, my notebook of observations, her folded emails from curators she once contacted but never heard back from. Piece by piece, the family puzzle forms: Celeste's marriage to a diplomat, one surviving daughter, the line drifting down through decades to Emily, last of the Thorns, clutching a brooch she feared gone forever. When the clock nudges noon, my kettle whistles. I make tea. She sips but barely tastes, eyes fixed on the crescent moon shimmering against her palm. I have to return it to the museum, she says suddenly. They'll want it for provenance. Soon, I reply. But first, I think you should bring it to her, properly. To Celeste? To the woman who sat for Fairchild, and to the sculpture that has waited perhaps for this reunion. The walk to the museum. The afternoon streets bustle, yet a bubble of hush follows us, as though city sounds part respectfully for the air and her guardian. Emily keeps the brooch pinned inside her blazer pocket, fingers checking its presence every 20 steps. I carry the letters in a weather-worn messenger bag, guarding them like diplomatic papers. Outside the Metro City Museum, limestone columns gleam. Mrs. March at the ticket desk recognizes me, but her practiced smile melts to surprise at my companion's tear-stained cheeks. I nod a silent plea for discretion. She waves us through without a word. We climb the broad staircase to Gallery 27. Tourists drift among bronzes. Schoolchildren perch on benches sketching busts. Yet the moment we cross the threshold, a hush envelopes Emily, as palpable as cool air from a hidden vent. Sunlight, angled precisely as on the day Fairchild carved, slides through skylights to crown Celeste's marble brow. Emily steps forward until only inches separate her from the relief. She withdraws the brooch, cradles it at heart level, and then, voice no louder than wind through wheat, she speaks. Great-grandmother Celeste, I've come 1,000 kilometers guided by stories you left behind. I thought I'd failed you, but a stranger kept your moon safe. The gallery fades. No footsteps, no camera shutters, only words binding past to present. Tears overflow, silvering her lashes. A docent at the far door begins to approach, but I raise a subtle hand. He pauses, understanding that history is unfolding and must not be interrupted. Emily continues, now steadier. Our family lost so much: fortune, home, even our name in the city's memory. All we kept was this crescent. It carried us generation by generation until it found the one place it truly belongs, here, with you. She presses the brooch lightly to her lips, then, slowly, reverently, lifts it toward the carved bodice, the spot where Fairchild immortalized its twin in stone. For a fragile second marble and moonstone align, the real gem gleaming before its sculpted echo. Sunlight catches both, splintering into prisms that dance over the relief, over Emily's cheeks, across my open notebook where I've forgotten to write. The air itself seems to hold its breath. Emily lowers the brooch, tears flowing unchecked. She turns, at last remembering I exist, and takes one uncertain step. Instinct draws me forward. I steady her elbows as her knees wobble, exhausted by the release. From down the hall, a brass clock strikes 2. 4 resonant chimes that ripple the silence into ordinary museum hush. The spell lifts. Distant chatter resumes. Emily wipes her cheeks, manages a grateful, trembling smile. "Thank you," she whispers. "You carried our legacy when I could not." "I only held it," I reply. "It was waiting for you all along." The curator's office. Formalities follow. Mrs. March calls collections. A curator named Dr. Ina Price meets us in a side office smelling of leather bindings and archival dust. We lay the letters on a felt pad, the brooch beside them. Dr. Price adjusts spectacles, studies engraving, cross-checks catalog notes of the relief. Her scholarly composure cracks into awe. "This," she says, voice hushed as a librarian at midnight, "is the missing companion piece. Fairchild's diaries mention a crescent brooch worn by his sitter, but scholars assumed it vanished." She looks at Emily. "Your family protected it for over a century." Emily nods, tears reigniting at the corners of her eyes. "I'd like it preserved, displayed, next to her, if possible." Dr. Price smiles. "We can arrange a long-term loan. Your great-great-grandmother would surely approve." She glances at me. "And I owe you, Mr. Whitaker, gratitude for safeguarding this." Embarrassment warms my throat. It merely fell into my path. "History often chooses its couriers," the curator replies. Paperwork unfurls, loan agreements, provenance affidavits, digital photographs under museum lighting. I sign as finder, Emily signs as donor. Each pen stroke seals Celeste's moonstone, in public memory rather than private obscurity. Dusk in the sculpture hall. By the time we return to Gallery 27, documents complete, brooch temporarily surrendered for mounting preparations, the hall glows amber under slanting sunset. Visitors thin to a handful, cleaners wheel silent carts between rooms. We stand together before Celeste. Without the brooch in Emily's hand, the moment feels dreamlike, as though the object's physical weight was the anchor binding morning and afternoon. Yet a profound stillness settles, deeper than loss, richer than possession. The moonstone's absence already prefigures its presence in a new form, protected, illuminated, framed beside its sculpted twin for all eyes to witness. Emily exhales a long, shuddering breath. She's safe. It's safe. And I feel lighter. You carried the story, I say. Now the story carries you. She slips her arm through mine, a gesture so natural it startles both of us. We laugh softly, the sound echoing under marble arches. There's a cafe across Franklin Square, I tell her. Does decent Earl Grey and tolerable sandwiches. She smiles. A sunrise after storm clouds. Lead the way, Oliver. As we walk out, I glance back one last time. Light from the skylight lingers on Celeste's marble cheek, and for an instant, perhaps illusion, perhaps gratitude carved in stone, the relief seems to soften, lips curved in the faintest of knowing smiles. Emily doesn't see, but I lift my free hand in a quiet salute, acknowledging the silent matriarch who orchestrated a century-long reunion through a chance sparkle beneath a bus seat and a modest driver who simply refused to ignore it. Chapter 10. A New Beginning. I lead Emily across Franklin Square beneath a sky that has traded gray for a mellow topaz glow, the last spill of daylight pooling between low rooftops. The spring breeze carries the scent of lilac from curbside, planters, and every breath I draw feels lighter, as if some tight-wound spring inside my ribs has been released. The cafe's bell chimes when we step in. It's a narrow place. Subway tile walls, wobbling tables, and the warm blur of a filament bulb reflected in a brass espresso machine. Hardly grand. Yet tonight it seems gilded. We claim a corner booth where the seat leather is cracked but comfortable. Emily orders Earl Grey with just a twist of lemon. I ask for black coffee. No need for sugar now that life has grown so suddenly sweet. For a minute or two we say nothing. Just watch steam coil from our cups. The quiet isn't awkward. It is the hush after cymbals, the echo that lingers when a symphony's last chord resolves. My notebook lies between us, pages splayed like wings, a chronicle of bus numbers, timestamps, and nervous hopes. Emily runs a fingertip along the margin, smiling at each cramped entry. You kept such faithful notes, she murmurs. A driver's habit, I confess. Routes, schedules. My mind lives in timetables. She folds the notebook closed, reverent. And yet you followed no timetable today. I laugh, a soft exhale of agreement. No, today we wrote our own. I lift my cup and salute. Porcelain clinks hers. To stories that choose unlikely couriers. She mirrors my toast. And to couriers who choose to listen. Plans made over. Teacups. Conversation flows in looping currents. Family lore, museum minutiae, anecdotes from the road. I learned that Emily studied art conservation in a small coastal college, but returned home when funds dried up. She took a clerical job in the city 6 weeks ago, hoping proximity to galleries might reopen dormant dreams. I wanted to stand close to paintings, even if only to file paperwork about them, she says, shrugging a self-deprecating shoulder. Grandmother called. It eccentric. I called it necessary. I tell her about bus 312, about the way dawn light refracts through a newly cleaned windshield, about the small joy of returning a lost mitten to its owner and seeing gratitude bloom on a stranger's face. I expect her to label it humble. Instead, she calls it poetic. Outside, dusk goes violet, then indigo. Street lamps spark in unison like stage lights cued for scene change. We linger over second cups until the barista flips the closing soon placard. Emily traces condensation rings on the table. I should retrieve my bag, she says. Checkout was noon. The hostel staff kindly gave me until nightfall. Come, I reply, rising. I'll walk you back. The hostel farewell. The lobby is deserted save for a desk clerk absorbed in a paperback mystery. Emily thanks him for the extension, signs a form, and shoulders her weathered duffel. The clerk asks where she'll go next. She hesitates. I realize she has no new lodging yet, just a fragile plan to stay somewhere near the museum until work stabilizes. Back on Calder Street, she looks smaller beneath the streetlight, the duffel tugging at her shoulder. Rain begins. A tentative sprinkle. Instinct overrides caution. My flat has a fold-out sofa, I offer. It's tidy and safe. One night only, until you find something permanent. She studies my face, weighing trust. A lone car hushes, passed on wet asphalt. Finally, she nods. One night. Thank you. We set off side by side, sharing the umbrella I keep folded in my satchel. The silence between us is gentle, strewn with unsaid gratitude. A room rearranged. Back at my apartment, I pull fresh linens from the cupboard, and make up the sofa with the precision of a hospital corner, yet somehow softer. Emily places her duffel by the armchair, then pauses before the pine table. Celeste's photograph presides there, but the fresh lily has paled, edges bruising. Without speaking, Emily removes the wilted stem, crosses to the window, and empties the vase in one elegant motion. She returns with water from the kitchen tap, then adds a sprig of greenery she kept tucked in her duffel. Eucalyptus, silver green and fragrant. The portrait seems to brighten under its renewed offering. When I thank her, she smiles. Family habit. We tend what remembers us. Letters in the lamplight. Later we sit on the floor, back against sofa cushions, and scroll through photographs. On my old laptop, images I snapped covertly over months. Celeste bathed in dawn light, Celeste wreathed in midday glare, Celeste half swallowed by twilight shadow. Emily leans closer each time, pointing out subtleties, tool marks in the marble curls, microfractures near the clavicle. Her voice steadies. Grief settles into curiosity. She unspools more letters. Under amber lamplight we decipher brittle script from distant relatives. A shipment manifest for the brooch when Celeste toured Paris in 1899. A Christmas card from Roland Fairchild to Celeste's daughter featuring a tiny sketch of crescent moons. Each artifact slides another puzzle piece into place until we glimpse a fuller vista of lives stitched together by shared silver threads. Midnight slips in unnoticed. Only when the hallway clock strikes 12 do we realize fatigue has crept upon us. Emily folds the letters carefully, records them in her phone for scanning tomorrow. She stands, sways slightly, then laughs at her own exhaustion. "Your sofa?" she asks. "This way." I turn down the lamp to a glow, hand her an extra quilt. As she settles under its weight, she murmurs, "Thank you for trusting me with the brooch and the sofa." "Thank you," I answer, "for trusting me with its story." I start to leave, then add, "If you need anything, I'll knock," she promises. I retreat to my room, leave the door ajar. The city hum feels softer tonight, as though traffic itself respects the relic. Reunited. A new dawn. A new routine. At 5 a.m. habit yanks me from sleep. I slip into uniform quietly, brew coffee. Through the half-open door I see Emily curled beneath the quilt, eucalyptus branch on the table casting delicate shadows over Celeste's face. I leave a note on the counter, "Gone to depot, back by 3. Help yourself to breakfast, spare key in cup by stove." Bus. 312 gleams beneath garage floodlights. Yesterday's polish still holds. Yet as I start my pre-shift checks, the vehicle no longer feels lonely. I realize the narrative that once ended at gallery doors now loops wider, encompassing hostels, chapels, tea shops, and a fold-out sofa shared under trust. My world has widened in 24 hours more than in 24 months. The route unfolds smoothly. Students boarding with earphones, office workers tapping phones. But something subtle has changed. Passengers seem vivid, each conversation possibility rather than background noise. At Maplewood Estates, an elderly rider compliments the shine on the railings. I beam back and think of Moonstone brilliance. Mid-route, I text Emily on break. Let me know when you wake. Museum wants us at 4 p.m. Curator hopes to photograph donor. And finder. Her reply pings before I replace the phone. I'm up, making eggs, eucalyptus surviving. See you soon, bus poet. I laugh aloud. An older gentleman stepping on board raises an eyebrow. I wave him to his seat, grin unapologetically. The exhibit unveiled. At precisely 4, the museum's small event room hosts a half-dozen staff, 2 local reporters, and us. The brooch now rests in a velvet-lined vitrine, a tiny spotlight coaxing galaxies from its moonstone depths. A matching plaque reads, Crescent Brooch, C. 1898, Moonstone, Silver. Worn by Celeste Aurelia Christie while sitting for Roland A. Fairchild's marble relief. Donated by Emily B. Thorne. Rediscovered by Oliver Whitaker. Cameras click. Flashbulbs pop like celebratory sparklers. Emily's hand finds mine. Steady, grateful. Dr. Price presents a formal letter offering her a part-time research post, assisting with Fairchild Archives while they process the donation. Emily's gasp morphs into a laugh that draws every head. Joy is impossible to ignore. Later, in Gallery 27, new visitors cluster around a fresh pedestal installed near Celeste. The brooch sits inside, twin of its sculpted echo, hyperlinking marble past and moonstone present. A child presses her nose to the glass, eyes wide. I crouch beside her and explain how a single misplaced trinket can travel on a city bus and still find its way home. The child listens, rapt, as though such magic might happen to her too. Behind us, Emily records the moment with her phone, tears bright but happy. She mouths across the room, "Thank you." I mouth back, "For what?" But she only shakes her head, smiling in a way that says the ledger of gratitude is too long to balance here. Evenings rewritten, Weeks turn. Emily moves from sofa to a small studio 4 blocks north, close enough for Sunday walks together. She begins her research role 2 days a week, spending off days digitizing Fairchild sketches. I resume my roots, but now one seat stays empty at 3:05 p.m. It belongs to her whenever she finishes early and rides downtown beside me, pointing out odd cloud shapes above intersections. Friday evenings find us back at the cafe, corner booth reserved by unwritten law. Some nights we discuss restoration, techniques. Other nights we sit silently, comforted by simple presence. My notebook now holds entries that read less like bus logs and more like poems, lines about moonlit chapels and eucalyptus shadows. Emily teases that one day I'll publish them under the title The Modest Driver's Guide to the City's Hidden Heart. In late summer, the museum hosts a public talk. Emily stands before 60 guests, recounting how great-great-grandmother Celeste crossed from legend into living memory. She gestures toward me in the front row and calls me the guardian on 4 wheels. Applause swells. I shrink inside my jacket, cheeks aflame, yet pride radiates warmer than the lights. A quiet promise. On the anniversary of our meeting, we return to Gallery 27 after hours, granted special access by Dr. Price. The hall is dark, save for one spotlight on Celeste and another on the brooch. We stand hand in hand, silent, stitching the moment. I whisper, "Would you say the story is finished now?" Emily leans her head to my shoulder. "Stories don't finish," she says. "They rest between chapters." She turns toward me, gaze steady. "Ready to write the next one, Oliver?" My answer is neither word nor gesture, but the simple truth, written in the rhythm of our joined pulse. Yes. In the marble stillness, Celeste looks on, her carved smile serene. I almost imagine the moonstone inside the case brightens, as though blessing a new beginning she once set in motion with a sparkle beneath a bus seat and the quiet devotion of a driver who chose to care. We leave the museum holding hope like a lantern between us, stepping into a city that suddenly feels wider, brighter, brimming with uncharted routes. And this time, neither of us is walking alone. Great work today. Every moment you spend practicing brings you closer to mastering your English listening and speaking skills. Remember, progress comes with patience and consistency. If this story inspired you or helped you in your learning journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Easy English Spark channel for more lessons and stories. Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep believing in your growth. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and keep shining.